So welcome everybody to our webinar this evening. Dr. Nathan Parker is teaching a series of 4 webinars on basics, but there will be tips for seasoned users as well. If you have questions, please go ahead and put those into the question section, or if you prefer, let us know and you can ask the question verbally. We do not have a handout this evening, so I'll just let you know that. So with that, I will turn it over to Nathan.
Thanks, Linda. So welcome everyone to this webinar. And as we dive in, the first thing that I'm going to be doing in this webinar is giving you kind of a high-level overview of the user interface in Accordance. We're also going to look at some preferences that you can customize in Accordance to get more out of your program and really enjoy using the app. So I'm working on a Mac today, but most of what I show you will be applicable for both Mac and Windows, although there may be some slight differences between the two in terms of the user interface, but I will walk you through those. So at the top of my Accordance window is the toolbar. And you can use this as your dashboard or your instrument panel where you can put your most frequently used features in Accordance. Now, by default, we have various buttons and icons that we have on the toolbar, but you can customize the toolbar and put your own favorite features and buttons on the toolbar. You can right-click on the toolbar and select Customize Toolbar. If you're on a Mac like me, you're going to get this sheet that drops down with all these various icons on the toolbar, and then you simply drag an icon up to the main toolbar. For example, if I wanted this search selection icon up on the main toolbar, I could just drag and drop it onto the toolbar, and then I could click on done, and that's going to apply all of my changes. If I ever want to go back to the default toolbar, I could select this default toolbar down here at the bottom and just drag and drop that to the top, and it will restore the toolbar back to my default icons. And then I can click on done, and that will apply the changes. Now, if you're on Windows, you will see 2 columns in your customized toolbar dialog box instead, and all of the various icons that you can add to the toolbar are on the left-hand side, and then you just scroll through the list. You'll select the feature that you want to add to the toolbar, and then you click an arrow button, and that moves it over to the right-hand side in the dialog box, and that will add the feature to the toolbar. And then when you're done, you can click on the save button or OK button, and that will save your changes. Also, when you're customizing the toolbar, you can move icons around on the toolbar as well. On Windows, you can move them up or down in that list. We do have space that you can add, so if you want to have space in between icons, we do offer that as well, or flexible space, which will automatically grow between the icons or shrink between the icons if you're adding more icons to your toolbar. In Windows, you just have to add multiple sections of space to your toolbar, and that allows you to customize it. And so play around with the toolbar and customize it and add all of your most frequently used features to the toolbar. Now, one button that I love keeping on the main toolbar is the library button, and this opens the library pane here on the left-hand side of the screen. And this is going to be the primary way that you would open books in Accordance. And Accordance primarily has 2 major categories of books in Accordance, but there are a few other things that we have that I'll mention in a moment. We have texts and we have tools. So texts are going to primarily be Bible texts, your English Bibles, your Greek or Hebrew Bibles, your foreign language Bibles, although we do have a handful of non-Bible texts as well in Accordance, such as the Apocrypha, the Apostolic Fathers, some of the other church fathers' works, the Talmud. We have some of these other ancient texts as well in accordance that would also be considered non-Bible text. But they're what we would generally refer to in the research process as primary sources. So your primary source material is going to be displayed in the texts section in the library. And then your secondary sources are what Accordance refers to as tools. And these can be multiple categories, for example, dictionaries and commentaries and Greek and Hebrew lexicons and grammars and devotionals and study Bibles and theological books, biblical studies books, journals, all of that. Those are going to be classified as tools in Accordance. And to open a text or a tool, then you simply select the category and then you simply double click on it, and that's going to open up the text or the tool in Accordance. And also, if you do have any of our databases installed, for example, your syntax graph charts, your diagrams of the Greek New Testament, the Targum's word map, then sometimes those will show up in your library as well under databases. And there's a quick, easy way that you can open them there if need be. And then below that, we have a section called background that allows you to access the 3D Bible Atlas and the timeline. And we'll be going into that in a future webinar, as well as the My Stuff, which allows you to save your own content into Accordance. Most of that we're going to be covering in a future webinar, but we'll cover a tiny bit of that today. And in the library pane, there's a couple of things that you can do. So one, at the top, you can filter down so you can just see everything. Or if you just want to see, for example, your tools, you can click and just filter to show your tools. I'm going to go back to show all. Your recently opened text or tools or any other content will also show up here at the top of your library, which makes it easy to go back to what you've recently opened. And then you can also use the search here where you can search for a particular text or tool. And you can refine your search by any category or by the name of the module. That's the name, the short name of the module, or the full title of the module, the name as it appears in the library, or the author, or the publisher, or a couple other categories that you can search there. I usually just leave it to any category and then type my search. So for example, if I wanted Erickson's Christian Theology, I could type Erickson, and there it's going to appear, and I can just double click to open it up. Now, a couple of things you'll want to do in the library itself is you're going to want to likely take some time to organize your books in the library. So one way you can do that is through custom folders, and that's what I've done here under text. Is I put all of my texts into different folders. And what you do is you simply right click anywhere in text or tools, and then you'll click on add folder, and you'll give the folder a name. And then once you've given the folder a name, you can also right click on it and select change folder icon. And we have all sorts of neat little icons that you can change for the folder. And so here I created a folder called preferred text, and I put the text that I used the most in this folder. And then the convention that I've used when organizing my text is I've gone through and I've organized them according to language. And then those non-Bible texts I put down at the bottom because I felt that that made it easier for me to work with there. Now, under tools, I also created a folder under my grammars, different folders for my different grammars. So my Greek grammars and my Hebrew grammars, my Aramaic grammars all have their own folders as well. And our users use folders in different ways in accordance. Some people, for example, under their commentaries will group all of their preaching commentaries together and all of their devotional commentaries together and all of their technical commentaries together. So that is one way that you can organize your library. The other way that you can organize your library is you can instead right-click anywhere and you can click on Add Divider, and then you can move books above or below a divider. So what I did in my commentaries and my dictionaries and in things such as my Greek or Hebrew lexicons or my study Bibles is I added the divider, and then I added my most frequently used dictionaries or commentaries or study Bibles above that divider so that I can easily get to them anywhere. And then as you're adding new books into your library, if you start collecting a lot of books and you just want to organize your books a little bit easier, for example, here under theological, I've got a lot of theology books. You can select multiple books by clicking on one book and holding down the command key if you're on a Mac, or the control key if you're on Windows, or you can hold down the shift key and select multiple books at once. You can select all of your books in a particular category, and you can click on alphabetize, and that's going to put everything in alphabetical order so that you can more easily access those books. And somehow I accidentally popped them up there to the main toolbar, so I'm going to clear that and fix that. So before I go on to showing other interface elements, I want to pause for a moment and see if we have any questions that have come in.
We do have a question. Does Accordance allow you to change the default number of recently opened from 5 to something else?
At the moment, I believe it does not. I have not found a way to increase that number yet. So I believe it is by default 5. So, and yeah, that same question came through. All right, so hopefully that answered it. And somehow, yeah, his question is still, I don't know why his question keeps popping up in the system, but oh well. So yeah, as of right now, it does not. It is, I believe it's hard coded to 5. I haven't found a way to change it. So do we have any other questions before we continue on?
No, we don't.
Okay, great. So now I want to show some additional interface elements as well. And the main element that I want to show on the screen is how to actually work with books in Accordance. Now we're going to get into the actual searching of books in a future webinar, but each book, a text or a tool on your screen has their own what they call search window. And that's what you're seeing here on the screen. And each one is their own pane. And so the search functionality itself, we're going to save for a future webinar, but here on the screen, each search window, each pane is what's considered in their own zone. And I have 2 zones here on my screen at the moment. So I've got the Bible in one zone, and I've got a theology book here in another zone. If I wanted the Bible to take over my entire screen at one time, I can hit this button right here and say magnify this zone. And it's like a maximize button that pops the Bible out and it allows it to take over the entire screen. And then if I want to put the Bible back into a second zone, I can just click the button again, and that shrinks it back down into the second zone. The other thing with working with texts and tools in Accordance, I'm going to close the tool out for a moment and just focus in on the text's interface is that I can also switch between various texts and tools using this drop-down menu. So if I select this, you can see all of my folders are here that mimic what's in the library, and it's showing me all my texts and tools. But there's also a neat feature here where I can use a keystroke to switch between my various texts and tools. So if I wanted to go to that Greek text, I could actually hit Control-2, and that will take me to the Greek text. And I can go all the way up to Control-0, and that's taking me to the CEB, which is the last Bible in the list. And then I can just go up and down. I can just go up and down and cycle through my various texts as well. So I'm going to go back to my King James Bible. Well, actually, I want to go back to the ESV. Let me bring that up. So here I'm back at the ESV, and I can also resize or make text larger or smaller by using this double arrow icon here on the book toolbar. So if I want to increase my font size, I can do that. If I want to decrease the font size, I click the smaller one. So you can control how large or small of the font size that you want to use in the Bible text using that button right there. And then if I want to quickly get to another scripture passage and I'm using Accordance 14 or later, we have this new quick click verse picker where I can click on the quick click verse picker. I can select the chapter, the book, chapter, and then the verse and go straight there. So it's a very quick way to get where I need to go. Additionally, in Accordance, we do have a way where you can enable your own interlinear Bible. So right next to the font size button, we do have a way where you can show or hide the interlinear. And you can click on Show Interlinear, and this is showing the interlinear. And then you can customize the interlinear from everything from the key number to the lexical form of the word or transliteration, parts of speech, tagging, glosses. If you have syntax installed, you can, and you can even show other translations. One way that I've done this is with the Complete Biblical Library. I've set this up ahead of time so that my Complete Biblical Library is an interlinear that has my Hebrew term and the transliteration and the part of speech, and then some other grammatical information, and then an English translation as well. And you can create your own interlinears by selecting different content in this list. And then you can save the interlinear down here as Save as New Interlinear, and then that will populate it here in this list here. These are some of the ones that I've saved, and create your own interlinear Bible. So it's a really neat feature that we have there. We also have the gear icon here. This is known as the action menu, which will also allow you to bring up the interlinear if you need to. We also have a feature called custom phrasing in Accordance 14. This allows you to create your own text flow diagrams. This is especially useful when working with the biblical languages, for example, Greek. We may get into that in a future webinar, we'll see. And then we also have a way where you can choose Set Text Pane Display, and this will allow you to customize how your text pane display looks, and we're going to also cover this in preferences here in just a moment. In addition, you can add multiple Bibles in parallel in these panes. So for example, if I wanted to add the King James with Strong's, I could do that. I can even add my own study Bible or commentary as well. So I can click down here and go to reference tools and say, hey, I want to add a study Bible, and say, well, maybe I want Charles Stanley's Life Principles Bible. and I can add that to the pane as well. So I can create my own parallel Bible if I want that capability. I can create my own study Bible if I want to as well, in accordance, and mix and match different Bible translations with different Bible notes. And what's really neat about this is you're not bound to what's available in print books, whereas in print books, if you buy a parallel Bible, you're bound to those particular Bible translations, or some study Bibles are bound to particular Bible translations. You can mix and match this to your heart's content. We also have a really neat feature here called the compare feature, where you can highlight the differences between words to see which words have been changed in different text or added or removed from different text. This is especially useful when working with biblical languages, if you need to perform text criticism and see changes in various Greek manuscripts. You have that capability as well. And in addition to being able to add parallel panes in the text, you can also, for example, open your own commentary. So for example, here's Butler's Analytical Bible Expositor. And then you can click on any tab here, and you can go down to tab ties, and you can tie these two tabs together. So this gives you more room to work with the commentary or the study Bible that you're adding in, with your text. And so you're able to scroll through and still keep everything in sync, just like you could with the parallel pane, but you're able to just see more content on the screen at one time, which is really nice. When you're working with tools in Accordance, they also have their own drop-down menu that allows you to switch between tools. They generally have their own table of contents as well, and you can choose to search various content here in the table of contents. So for example, if I type in faith, I can see all the places where Butler is talking about faith throughout his table of contents or outlines. You can also enlarge text or make text smaller. And you can also set the tool display as well, just like you can with the set text display. One other interface, well, a couple other interface elements I want to talk about, and then we're going to move on into preferences, is at the bottom of my screen, you're probably wondering, what is that big white bar that you see there at the bottom? That is known as the Instant Details pane, and you can toggle it on or off using this button right here on the main toolbar. And so in an English text that's tagged with Strong's numbers or key numbers, what's beneficial about it is that I can rest my cursor on a word, for example, created, and then it's going to come back and give me the Hebrew word that's underlying that English word, and it also gives me a brief definition as well. If you're working with a biblical language text, so if I switch, for example, to my Hebrew Bible and bump the text up and then select the word, I'm getting a lot of grammatical data on that particular word as well. And in our syntax Bibles, you're also getting syntactical information as well. Plus you'll get an English translation or gloss in this as well that you can work with. So it's just a very nice, quick way to get access to some rich information without having to go and look up information very quickly. And then if I hold down the command key on a Mac or control key on Windows, my preferred lexicon or dictionary is also going to appear in that Instant Details as well. And I can even make this vertical if I want to. So I can say switch to vertical orientation. And then if I hold down the command key, I can see more of a lot that way. So we do have that capability as well. We also have a menu bar at the top of the screen on the Mac, and on Windows, it's of course the menu bar that's at the top of your window. I'm not going to go through every menu item, but I am going to go through a few menu items that that are important to you as a new user. If you're on a Mac, under the Accordance menu, you're going to be able to get to your settings if you're running Mac OS Ventura, or later, if you're before that, it's going to say Preferences. On Windows, this is going to say Preferences, and it's going to be on the Edit menu. If also on the Accordance menu on a Mac, you're going to see these few icons, these few menu items, which are very important. If you're on Windows, these are going to be on the Utilities menu. Easy Install is where you will install new books that you purchase. So anytime you go out and buy a new book, you'll want to select Easy Install to install the book into Accordance. Check for content updates allows you to check for updates to books you already own. Sometimes we do go back and we will fix typos or other corrections to books, or make some changes to some books if we need to. And this is where you will download updates to existing books you own. The Check for App Update button on the menu is what you will select to get app updates for the existing version of Accordance that you are on. So these are free updates to the existing version of Accordance that you're on that will offer bug fixes and new features and new enhancements to that existing version. Now, if you want to upgrade from one version to the next, so for example, if you are on Accordance 13 and you're upgrading to Accordance 14, then you will need to download Accordance 14 from the AccordanceBible.com website and install it. We recommend using any web browser except for Google Chrome when making the installation. And so you will need to download the new app from our website if you're doing a major upgrade, and then use Check for App Update for any minor updates. We also do have the ability to sync with Dropbox, and for users of Accordance 14, we are moving forward with our own syncing system coming up. Or we have the ability for local syncing over your network with a mobile device. Also, the About Accordance menu item, I believe this is on Help on the Windows version. This is handy if tech support asks you, hey, what specific version of Accordance are you on? Then that's how you will get there. Most of these menus are pretty straightforward. So we have things, for example, on the File and Edit menus. The search menu is helpful, and we will get into this in a future webinar where I will talk more detail into various search commands that you can use in Accordance. The display menu allows you to make those changes to your text or tool display, as well as some other changes there. We also have the ability where if you select text in Accordance, then you can do things with the text that you select under this selection menu. Amplify, we will get into in a future webinar. And then the window menu offers some various things, for example, access to the library or instant details. If you want to work with highlights, we have that ability. If you need to type in Greek and Hebrew, we have the characters, the palette. If you want to read a daily devotional, you can do that using the daily reading feature. And then we just have some other items where you can arrange windows on the screen. We have a Get Verses screen that makes it easy for you to bring verses into another app, such as a word processor. And then slideshow or reading mode is helpful if you need to present Accordance on a larger screen. And then the help screen is also useful in Accordance. We have our own in-app help feature that is super popular with our users, so we recommend that. It's also anywhere in Accordance, you can click on this help icon on the toolbar and it will zero in the help file specifically where you are. And then we also have interactive tutorials as well in Accordance that walk you through how to perform different features in Accordance. Some are easy, some are harder, some are on different topics. And then links to, for example, various videos that we offer, or these webinars that we're teaching, or our blog, or our discussion forums. The Accordance Exchange is a place where you can share user content. We will talk about that coming up. And then if you are reading a book and you happen to come across a typo or something that our module development team needs to know, you can use report a correction to send that to our module development team so we can fix it in an update. We also do have the ability to put the app in either light mode or dark mode. If you're on Accordance 14 or later on Accordance 14, you can actually put the dark mode icon button on the toolbar and simply toggle it back and forth to go from dark mode to light mode. Plus, we brought dark mode to Windows. Now, if you're on Accordance 13, you have to restart the app to toggle between dark mode and light mode, and it's also Mac only. So that's the tour of the user interface. Do we have any additional questions before we go on to preferences?
No, we don't.
Okay, great. So now I'm going to show you how to customize your Accordance preferences for your needs to make sure that you're getting the most out of your software. If you're on a Mac, remember you'll go to the Accordance menu, and if you're on Ventura or later, this menu is going to say Settings because that's something that Apple did and changed everything across the board. If you're before Ventura, it's going to say Preferences. If you're on Windows, it's going to say Preferences, and it's going to be on the Edit menu because the Windows version doesn't have an app menu that says Accordance. And so here in your settings or preferences, I'm not going to walk through the entire dialog box, but I'm going to walk through the key things that you'll need to keep in mind when working with the application. Don't forget, you can also search your preferences at any time using the search box in the upper right corner of the screen. So here under General, there's a few things you'll probably want to configure. You'll want to configure under Startup. You're going to want to configure how do you want, what do you want to display in Accordance. And if you set it to default search tab, that's going to be the search tab that you set as default that we're going to do here in just a moment. Last session is going to be however you've arranged the Accordance windows and everything before you quit the app. It's basically going to restore and pick up where you left off. Daily reading is going to show you your favorite daily devotional and your preferred Bible all on one screen. And you can also set a default session by clicking this button, arranging everything on the screen the way you want it, and then clicking on set default session, and then that's what will load up each time you open the app. Or you can choose your favorite workspace and then choose a workspace from this menu. And before we end today's webinar, I'm going to show you how to save a workspace. And so mine's set to default session. So I'm just going to leave it there because I've already got everything set up the way I want it. Under information, I recommend suppressing the opening splash screen, opening text information, and suppress save warnings. Some of those opening screens were back when Accordance was running on older versions of the Mac operating system, which Accordance has always been a pretty fast application, even on older Mac operating systems. But when you're working with limited RAM, having that splash screen come up while the background program was loading was useful. Now that everything's pretty instant on new Macs and modern Macs, it's kind of a waste to have that. So I recommend having those selected. I like this one, the open parallel notes and tools in a vertical orientation, because I just think it looks cleaner that everything goes vertically. If you uncheck it, some of your stuff will be vertical and some stuff will be horizontal, depending on how much screen size you have. And so that's your personal preference there. Under arrow keys, I like it to change the resources and navigate, because that allows me to move up and down with those arrow keys and go up and down and change different resources that I'm working in. Under Amplify, this is where you can set your default settings for Amplify or triple click, and we're going to go into Amplify in a future webinar, but I just want to show you where you can set this here. So you can set your favorite English dictionary here. I've got ISBE Revised set on mine. You can set your favorite Greek or Hebrew lexicon. I've got BDAG and Halot set here, as well as Latin. Under verse reference, you can set your favorite commentary or study Bible, whatever verse reference book you use the most. I recommend a commentary. Here I've got mine set to Butler. And then you can choose whether you want to override the key number dictionaries. So if you're a more advanced Greek or Hebrew user, but maybe you're still sometimes reading an English text and then triple clicking on a word in a tagged Strong's or key number text, you can actually have it go to a more in-depth Greek or Hebrew dictionary than a key number dictionary. So in my case, BDAG and Halot. One feature I really love is this one right here, include reference when amplifying from text to tool. The reason why I have this selected is because it just makes life so much easier. So for example, if I go back to my Hebrew Bible, I may demo this with a Greek Bible. So first of all, I'm going to quickly run a word search for church, and we'll show you how to perform searches in a future webinar. And then I'm going to open up a Greek text here, so my NA28. And then if I triple click on a word and it opens BDAG here, it not only searches for the Greek term, but it also searches for the Bible verse. And what I like about this is that it highlights the Bible verse. So there's a lot of material here in BDAG, but it lets me zero in on that Bible verse and easily find the context surrounding where my Greek word is mentioned in that particular verse. And so it just makes it so much quicker and easier to locate where my scripture verse that I'm studying references my Greek or Hebrew or even English term. And believe me, I used that a ton during my time in seminary and found it to be super beneficial. Under appearance, this is where you set the general theme for the entire app. So whether you want the app in dark mode or any of these other themes, most of the time when I'm studying, I have mine set to Azure. For this webinar, I'm using Canyon just so that we're doing something a little bit different here. The quick entry font size, and we'll get into quick entry in a future webinar, but you can make it very small up to very large. You can also choose what interface language that you need to use, and the table of contents in the library. Do you want it small or large as well? And then you can choose if you want a white background for pictures. You can also, on the Mac, choose whether or not you want the legacy window toolbar appearance, because in Ventura Onward, they've changed the toolbar and made it smaller and scrunches the icons together. But some of our users kind of like the more old-fashioned style window appearance, so we do offer that as well. And when you're organizing your tools around and putting them into different folders or dividers like I showed you earlier, in the event you ever make some really major mistakes and you want everything to just go back to factory default, you can push this button. But be careful when you do, because when you do, this is going to wipe out all the customizations you made to your tools in your library and set everything back to factory defaults. But sometimes we have users that's moving stuff around and changing things around, and they want just a fresh, clean slate. And so if you click on that button, that allows you to do that. Under keyboard shortcuts, you can also create and modify your own keyboard shortcuts in accordance, and some of our users have found that helpful. Under the workspace settings, I recommend setting the default maximum zones to unlimited. It just makes life easier when you do that, so you're not getting all these error messages and pop-ups. I also like adding the instant details to a new workspace. You can show the library as a popover instead of as that sidebar where it pops over instead. I'm not a big fan of it because it does obscure my text when I'm working with it. And these are sections that I would spend a few moments on, where you can set the default display for your Bibles and your texts, your tools, and your user notes. So you can set the size of text. Do you want the text to display as paragraphs, separate verses? What kind of line spacing in between the two? What kind of font do you want to use? What search highlighting color do you want to use when you're performing searches? What do you want the reference font and color to look like? Excuse me. And then what color background do you want for your text or your tools as well? And then we also have some other advanced things that you can choose. If you want to hide red lettering or poetry or certain things, we can do that as well. And then under tool display, again, a lot of this is similar, except for you can change the color of page numbers. And then here you can choose your default Bible as well. That if you click on text, where's it going to go? And then your alternate text is, if it can't find it in the Bible, where does it need to go if you can't find it in your default Bible? So you could either set this up as a Bible and then maybe the Apocrypha as an alternate text, so that if you're doing primary source research, you can do that. Or you can set one to a Hebrew Bible and another to a Greek Bible. So we do have that capability as well. Under user notes display, a lot of this, again, similar, where you can customize this. You can choose if you want the reference above or below the note. And then most of this is pretty straightforward. We do have the ability where you can export characters as Unicode format. We have our own in-house Accordance font that gets installed alongside of Accordance when you're using it. And then if you're sharing a document with someone that doesn't have Accordance, they can actually download the Accordance font directly from our website if they would rather work with that than SBL fonts or other fonts. But you can choose any font that you need to. Some different changes for Greek and Hebrew exporting as well. And then you can also make various changes on how you want your Greek and Hebrew entry or your Hebrew searching to go. And then there's various syntax features here if you have the syntax installed, where you can customize that. You can also choose what fonts you want to display in Unicode tools, and then also for the export as well. Under that compare text feature that I showed you, you can choose how do you want it to compare. So do you want it to compare the actual words or the lexical forms? And then do you want it to ignore certain things like uppercase or punctuation or Hebrew pointing or Greek accents? You can change the colors of what shows up in compare text. And then you can choose your source text as well. So when it's running the compare text, what source text is it drawing off of? And then in instant details, we do have the ability to show cross highlighting. I want to show that feature too before we go, because it's a really neat feature as well. You can choose the font size for instant details as well. Do you want it to fade away when not in use? And then what information do you want in instant details? And do you want, under grammatical details, do you want the full words? Do you want them abbreviated? Sometimes that has come up as well. If you need to copy Bible text, how do you want it to look when you copy it into your word processor? That's what this citation is. So do you want it as paragraphs or verses? Do you want the reference before the verse or after the verse? How do you want it to look? In the bibliography section, what bibliography format do you want to use when working with tools? So do you want SBL, Turabian, all of that? And I will show a quick demo of that before we go as well, on how to copy a bibliographic citation out of Accordance. This is important. What do you want as your default search text or your default Bible? So you can set that here And then some of these searching and analytics features we'll get into in a future webinar. I may even come back and show you how to customize some of this a little bit later. Under reading and research, this is where you can set your default or favorite devotional as well. And then we'll get into research in a future webinar, but this button right here, if Accordance is ever crashing on you while you're using research, this is a handy button to just hit rebuild, and it can fix a lot of issues and cause, it just fixes certain issues there. So I recommend if you are experiencing some issues with research or some searches, just go into reading and research and hit this button and see if that gives things a fix there. We also do have various live click settings, and we'll get into this in a future webinar as well. You can save various external websites here as well, because Accordance does have its own built-in web browser, and I may quickly demo that as well here in just a moment. And then this user file section is pretty much straightforward, where you shouldn't have to do much with that. You can sync with Dropbox right now and link to your Dropbox account, and coming up we're going to be replacing this with our own in-house syncing system and allow you to do that. In the web browser, we do have the ability where you can set a custom homepage for the web browser, and then again, what is your preferred Bible or alternate text that you would use there. And then we will get into the Atlas and timeline in another webinar. And then if you want to automatically check for app updates or module updates, you can do that as well under your settings. And I see that there have been some questions that have come in. We will get to those in just a moment. There's just a few other quick things I'm going to show, and then we will get to those questions. So, for example, I do want to show how to copy out bibliographic information. So if I go to Erickson's Christian Theology and open that back up, I can select text in the work and then right-click on it and then select Copy As Bibliography. And that's going to allow me to bring it to a word processor and bring that bibliographic citation along with it that we showed there. So I do want to show how that works. Additionally, with the built-in web browser, I do want to show that just really quickly. So if I go to New Tab and then I select the web browser, you can browse the web right inside Accordance. So for example, periodically I'll use like this BibleMate website, this virtual Bible assistant, AI assistant, and I can ask it a question and I can have that right here inside Accordance in the web browser. Or my seminary, even though I've graduated, still gives me access to some of their journal articles and some of their content. So we have that ability to I can access my school's library directly from Accordance in this web browser. So it's super handy for that as well. Also, the one thing I do want to show is how to save a workspace in Accordance, and we'll get into my stuff later. But if you have everything organized out on your screen a certain way, then you can go up to the File menu and select Save, and then or Save As, and then you can give it a name, and that's going to save this as a workspace that you can then bring up later in the software. So here, for example, I have some various workspaces that I created. For example, that workspace that I created of my Complete Biblical Library modules all arranged on the screen the way I want it. So we do have that capability of doing that in Accordance. You can even save multiple workspaces together as saved session, although not too many people heavily have done that lately. I think a few people do occasionally, but most people just save everything as a workspace. And I want to see if there's anything else I wanted to cover before we open it up for questions, but I think those are the main features in Accordance. Let me just take one last peek through settings here and see if there's anything else that I overlooked that I want to go into. And then some of this we're going to go into in future webinars. Oh yeah, the cross highlighting feature, I did want to show that, which is pretty neat. So for example, if I open up my Hebrew Bible, and I've got my Strong's Bible here, if I rest my cursor on the word created, it's also going to appear in my Hebrew Bible as well. So that's what that cross highlighting feature does in Accordance. And you can change that feature right here and even change the color of it if you want to. So we do have that capability. So that's the main features that I wanted to show. I'm now going to open it up for questions.
Okay, David said, could you go over the recycle icon?
Sure, yeah, and we can cover this more even in future webinars as well. But yeah, I can go ahead and cover it here. So window recycling, what it does is it replaces the content of the window with whatever you're doing. So for example, if I open BDAG here, and I've got my article up, and if I select this window recycling feature, and then let me go to the New Testament. Well, let me first go to let me go to the New Testament first. And then let me go to a Greek Bible. So what's neat about this is that when the content is recycled, if I click on a word, or if I triple click on a word, then it's replacing what's in this pane with the content. So as I'm triple clicking on words, everything's staying in that one pane. Now, if I turn recycling off and I start clicking on words, then each word opens in its own tab, which by default it usually does enable recycled. So you'll have to turn recycling off each time if you want it to, but that will open multiple tabs of the same module with your searches. So it really depends on what you're wanting to do. If you want everything to replace the contents of the window each time you're looking something up, then keep the recycling on. And as you keep bringing up words, and the way I'm doing this is triple clicking on words in my Greek and Hebrew Bibles, and we're going to go into this in a future webinar. But that's going to replace the contents of the pane. If, for example, say I'm reading something and say, well, I need to keep this on the screen, but I need to open up a second copy of this and look something else up, I can turn it off, and then I can come up here and click on a word, triple click on a word, and now my original content is still there, and then my second copy is here there with what I've looked up. So that's how that works.
Okay, and two questions. What's the best way to back up your preferences and also to back up your library, just in case it gets reset by accident, the library, and just to keep the preferences?
So if you're on a Mac, the best way to do it is to use Time Machine, and Time Machine is going to back everything up. And then if something were to mess up, you can reach out to our tech support team, and they could tell you where to go under preferences in Time Machine to restore those files from a backup. On a Windows machine, you may be able to pull it off with Windows backup, built-in backup tools, but I'd have to double check. What I've done on my Windows machine lately is I'm using a program called Macrium Reflect, which is basically it's a Windows time machine, although unlike the Mac that has it all nice and built in, this one actually costs money to install. But I found it gives me that same functionality as Time Machine, but on the Windows machine, where I can go and easily restore something from a backup in the event something happens. In fact, my whole Windows machine did something strange recently, and I was able to restore my entire machine back the last time that it was working well, and I was able to pick up where I left off without any problems at all. And then for me personally, for the other safety net that I do is I actually have 2 USB drives, and then I rotate them once a month off-site at a secure location, so that way, if there is a tornado or a natural disaster or something that comes through, then I know that all my preferences and everything are backed up where I can easily get to them. Now, gradually, our goal is to make it where our goal with syncing will be to have everything done in the cloud, where you should be able to sign into your Accordance account and be able to restore your preferences if need be, but that's going to be probably a little bit off. We're probably going to be doing things more in phases on that, on syncing, but we'll see how things go.
Okay, he said excellent suggestions. Thanks.
Sure. So in our future webinars, we're going to be covering searching, InfoPane, dynamic word study. I may dabble a little bit with the Greek construct feature. We'll be covering things like amplify, triple click, some other things there. We'll also try to cover some of the graphics tools like Atlas and Timeline, as well as some of the My User data as well in Accordance. So definitely stay tuned for those future webinars to learn how to use all of those features. And then don't forget, at any time, we have webinar recordings. This webinar is going to be recorded, so you can go back and watch it at a later time. We have other webinar recordings that you can go to Help in Webinars and see our past webinars or sign up for future webinars. I've been producing a lot of quick tip videos, and I've got more coming up where we'll just take certain features in Accordance and highlight them in these very short, easy to digest videos, as well as my colleague Sean has been producing some basics videos as well that are short and very easy to get started with Accordance, so check those out. If you have questions at any time, you can use our discussion forums to ask how to do something in Accordance, and we'll be glad to answer. If you have a problem with Accordance, of course, you can reach out to our tech support via email or by phone, and we'll be glad to assist there. Plus, those in-app tutorials or in-app Accordance help is also a great way to get a wealth of additional information in Accordance. Don't forget to make sure you're signed up for our regular newsletters that also come with free books, and our weekly sales newsletters, so you're staying on top of the latest sales there. So that's going to be it for now. Linda, you can go ahead and end the